Hey, Bankless Nation. Welcome to another State of the Nation. Super excited about the topic today and the guest we have. David, why don't you give a quick preview? Who are we talking about? What's this about?
Antonio Giuliano from DYDX, who will be on the show for the third time because DYDX continues to just deliver absolute groundbreaking just metrics and landmarks when it comes to decentralized trading now on layer 2. And so that is really the story of this week, is that DYDX has been doing more volume than Coinbase. And Coinbase is the leading centralized exchange.
Wait,
and not
can
only
you say that again?
Yeah,
David, you say that again.
DYDX, a order book based exchange that lives on an Ethereum layer 2, is doing more volume than the world's leading centralized exchange and also all other DEXs on Ethereum combined. Right? And so this is an amazing success story out of a project that has been grinding for years. So well deserved to the DYDX team. And I feel like once you have like more volume than Coinbase or more volume than a leading centralized exchange, like we have a bunch of lessons to learn about how that story unfolded. And so that is what we are going to tell today. Sorry. Yeah. How
exactly. They do it. That's the question. This meteoric rise, how did they do it? What I love about this story too is no sacrifices in decentralization were made. Like no harm to decentralized protocols in the making of DYDX, which is absolutely fantastic because there's so many like other alternatives out there that sacrifice on decentralization and say, hey, decentralization is not what users want, not what users care about. But DYDX is prioritized it the entire time. Right. And now this success, it feels like an overnight success, but it's really been like a 5-year overnight success. I think a huge catalyst was the launch of Layer 2. But we're going to let Antonio tell us more of the story. So we'll get to that in a minute. One thing I'd like to remind Bankless listeners, if you are a Bankless listener and you want some, let me see if I can share this. You see my screen here, David?
Yeah, I see your Spotify.
Okay. Exit that real quick. All right. What I was going to show you is this. This is a Bankless referral. If you are a DYDX user and you don't know about this or you want to become a DYDX user, we have a referral code for you to save 10% in the show notes. You can check that out as well. Just another gift from the Bankless team. Go check that out. But before we get to the main conversation, David, let's talk a little bit about what's new in the Bankless community right now. Mariano Conti on Layer 0. This is a new podcast where we explore the people behind crypto. David, that episode came out this morning. I haven't listened to it yet. I listened to all of them. I haven't listened to this one yet. Give us a preview of what's in that conversation.
Yeah, the fun part about the conversation, we talked about so many things, but Mariano, he hadn't really like worked very, very hard, very much before Ethereum, and something about Ethereum turned him into an absolute grinder, one of the leading smart contract devs in all of Ethereum. So the story behind Mariano, specifically on that told in Layer 0, is like, why did Ethereum make Mariano a hard worker when he wasn't that before?
Wait. So you mean he wasn't working very hard? You mean he was like kind of lazy? Yeah. Is that how he put it? Because he is definitely not lazy.
He's definitely not lazy now. And so that's the story. Is like the story we told is the transition between being not a hard worker to one of the hardest workers in DeFi.
Wow. I'm looking forward to listening to that. We also came out with a podcast on Monday with Devin Finzer, who is the founder of OpenSea. That's an incredible, I think, unicorn of the year, maybe. Although DYDX might be a contender for that. I don't know. But, OpenSea's had just an incredible year. No signs of slowing down, like 3 billion in transaction volume for the last 2 months. And catch that episode if you want to understand why and how they are actually doing it. David, we've also got to give a shout out to Zerion, who's doing some magic in the NFT landscape. I use Zerion for all sorts of things, viewing my crypto portfolio, viewing my DeFi portfolio. But now they actually have a way to showcase NFTs. I'm looking at your.
Oh my God! God damn! I need to get rid of these Fidenza rocks.
You can't just keep them in here. Just pass them to your kids at some point in time. Hand them down. And it's super cool. I haven't fully done this yet, but I want to. I want to borrow my wife's Apple Watch. I don't have one, but check this out. You can use Zerion to actually add your NFT to be the faceplate of your Apple Watch.
That is
and it
pretty
takes
sick.
like 20 seconds to do that.
We want better ways to flex our NFTs to the world, and I guess putting it on your Apple Watch is an underappreciated and now available tool to all NFT flexers out there.
Absolutely. So flex your NFT with style. Use Zerion. Go check that out. There's a link in the show notes to that where you can find all sorts of more information. David, I've got to ask you the question I ask before every State of the Nation as well, which is, what is the state of the nation today, sir?
This one's kind of a cop-out, but the state of the nation is decentralized because more trading volume is going on DYDX, which is a decentralized exchange, than going on Coinbase or any other centralized exchange. And so this is a huge victory for the world of being bankless and being self-sovereign. And that is all thanks to the power of an order book-based exchange on the layer 2. So today, the bankless nation is a little bit more decentralized.
You know what? I'm gonna plus one that, because I was doing right before this episode, I was reading up on Polynia. If you've read anything that Polynia has written, he's a poster on ETH Finance, also has Medium, but it made me so bullish on like layer 2s and where that's going. Just a wealth of information and resource. I think people are underrating layer 2 right now, Ethereum layer 2 specifically, and we're in this season where they're overrating alternative layer 1s that compromise on decentralization. So yeah, State of the Nation is decentralized. We're going to get into that in just a moment with Antonio, talk about the DYDX story. But before we do, we want to thank the sponsors that made this episode possible.
Bankless is proud to be supported by Uniswap. Uniswap is a new paradigm in asset exchange infrastructure. Instead of a cumbersome order book system where trades are matched with other humans, Uniswap is an autonomous piece of software on Ethereum, which is what Ryan and I call a money robot. No human counterparties or centralized intermediaries, just autonomous code on Ethereum. Input the token you want to sell and receive the token you want to buy. Something brand new in the Uniswap ecosystem is the Uniswap Grants program is now accepting applications for grants. We have been saying this for a while and we'll say it again. DAOs have money and they are in need of labor. If you think that you have something to contribute to the Uniswap DAO, apply for a grant to Uniswap. Just look at the size of the Uniswap treasury. It's almost $3 billion. This mountain of capital is looking for labor. Do you have something of value to contribute to the Uniswap DAO? No matter how big or small your idea is, you can apply for a uni grant at unigrants.org and help steer Uniswap in the direction that you think it should go. That's exactly what we did to get Uniswap to be a sponsor for Bankless, and you can do the same for your project. Thank you, Uniswap, for sponsoring Bankless. The era of proof of stake is upon us. Proof of stake systems like Ethereum, Terra, and Solana allow the industry to move away from the hot, loud, and wasteful proof of work systems and return back to a cottage industry of individual stakers and individual validators. And that is what we need to make this industry stay decentralized. Individuals must play their part in crypto network validation. And that is what Lido is here to do. Lido makes staking accessible to everyone at the click of a button. By delegating your stake to Lido's network of nodes, you can access the yield offered by proof of stake systems and claim your share of the network transaction rewards. Do you have 32 ETH and want to stake it to Ethereum, but running a node sounds intimidating? Or maybe you have less than 32 ETH and you need to pool your ETH with others so you can access staking yields. Lido offers a solution for both. Simply go to lido.fi, choose which assets you want to stake, and deposit them to the Lido validating network. Lido is working to make sure proof of stake stays as decentralized as possible, and is committed to decentralizing its own validating network to eventually become a completely permissionless protocol. So if you want to stake your ETH, Terra, or Sol and get liquidity on your stake, go to lido.fi to get started.
All right, guys, we are back with Antonio Giuliano. He is the co-founder of DYDX. He's previously an engineer at Coinbase, but 5 years ago, Antonio quit Coinbase to build DYDX. Now, DYDX has passed Coinbase in 24-hour volume. That's a crazy story. We've had Antonio on the show before twice, but we keep bringing him back because he keeps delivering these crazy results. And DYDX is probably the story of the month of September. So Antonio, great to have you back. How are you doing, sir?
Doing really well. Thanks so much for having me and excited to be on.
Yeah, well, look, you tweeted this out. This is like a milestone type tweet. You tweeted
Yeah.
this out the 26th. You said 5 years ago, I left Coinbase and eventually founded DYDX. Today, for the first time, DYDX is doing more volume in trading volume than Coinbase. Absolutely crazy. Can you get like how? First of all, how does that feel? And give us a sense of like, um, did you ever think you would be here?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did think there was a good chance we would be here at some point. It's certainly not a given when you're building just a really innovative, exciting new project in a really new space. But this is kind of what we've been talking about for the whole time, us and everyone who I think is excited about DeFi, just the potential, like the reasons to use it long term, the potential growth opportunity with token launches, which has obviously played into this in a really big way. Didn't quite think it would happen this soon, but as you guys were alluding to in the intro, it's certainly been a long grind on DYDX, but I think we have set ourselves up really well for success, and that's always exciting.
It's really nice to be able to compare trading volume between Coinbase and DYDX just because like it's apples to apples, but also Coinbase and DYDX as platforms are different platforms. So maybe can you help me and the listeners kind of just compare and contrast the differences behind Coinbase and DYDX? Most notably in my mind, like the availability of assets, I think is a lot lower on DYDX, which makes those volume numbers even more impressive. And then also, can you maybe clue us into like the number of users that are trading on DYDX and if you do know the numbers on Coinbase, how those compare?
Yeah, great question. So I think there are a number of key differences between DYDX and a platform like Coinbase. Obviously, the biggest difference is that DYDX is decentralized, non-custodial, transparent, all the good stuff you guys really preach, and I'm sure the listeners can appreciate. And then the other really big difference between DYDX and a platform like Coinbase is DYDX is focused on financial derivative products and specifically perpetual contracts, whereas Coinbase, for the most part, is focused on spot trading. Spot trading is sort of just a fancy word for regular old buying and selling of assets. Have touched on this before on the show, but just a quick recap of kind of what financial derivatives are and why we're really excited about them. Derivatives are synthetic products, which can be created on top of any asset. Synthetic basically means when you're trading a derivative, you're not actually trading the assets, that are under the hood. So if you're trading like a Bitcoin perpetual, there's no actual Bitcoin being traded or kind of being held on DYDX or any other platform you may be trading perpetuals on. But there are these kind of financial incentives, financial mechanisms, which effectively make these derivative products trade at the price of the underlying asset. And that's really what we've created on DYDX. And the reason people are so excited about derivative products and the reason they've been taking off in a huge way in cryptocurrency, even before DYDX, has been that you can trade them with leverage. And kind of what the concept of leverage means is that you can come to an exchange with, say, $100, and say you went to Coinbase with $100, you could buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. And that's great. We all want to buy Bitcoin. But if you come to DYDX or, a different platform that offers leverage trading, and you are willing to lever up, you could buy, say, $500 worth of Bitcoin or $1,000 worth of Bitcoin with your $100 through kind of the power of leverage. It's not without risks. There are risks with trading on any leverage platform, but for the most part, that's what's been driving a ton of volume to these derivatives exchanges over time. The biggest exchanges in the space by trading volume in the past year or two have been Binance and FTX, and their trading volume has really been dominated by trading of these derivative products. And that's really why we're focused on derivatives at DYDX. Zooming all the way out, our highest level goal at DYDX is to become one of the biggest exchanges in crypto, period, centralized or decentralized, but kind of on a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And that's what's really informed our focus on derivative products, because basically by definition, if you want to be the biggest exchange in crypto, you must support the biggest trading markets. And those are already and will continue to be derivative products. Obviously, we're making a really big bet on decentralized exchanges. I'm sure we'll touch a lot on why we're all really excited about decentralized exchanges. But I'd say those are probably the biggest differences between DYDX and Coinbase. Certainly, there are other differences. As you mentioned, Coinbase supports more markets than DYDX does. However, we've actually been improving on that quite a lot recently. I think we're up to like 27 or so markets now, Haven't
Wow,
checked how many
that's great.
Coinbase has, but yeah, I think it's like 50 to 100. But I think last time we spoke on the show, DYDX had on the order of like 5 markets.
Yep.
And I think we talked on the show back then about, all this stuff that we were working on from a tech perspective to enable us to launch in a lot of new markets. That's driven a lot of growth, and sort of that thesis has come true. So, still not quite to the level of a Coinbase or, especially like a Binance or FTX on the number of markets. But what I would say there is most of the trading volume in crypto happens on the top assets. So, Bitcoin and Ether just drive most of the trading volume in the space, just those two. So as much as we're able to capture that on DYDX, I think we have been successful there. So yeah, a lot there. I'll stop there for now, but I'd say those are kind of the biggest differences between the two.
I think another difference I'd like to highlight is that DYDX doesn't have a native fiat on-ramp, and Coinbase does. And that's definitely why Coinbase is optimized for spot trading rather than these perpetuals, which makes it even more astounding that DYDX has beaten Coinbase with trading volume, because Coinbase has hooks into everyone's bank accounts, whereas DYDX it's kind of like the hard way, where you actually can only take money from L1 Ethereum and have that be deposited. And that has also changed probably the user profile, both in the nature of what the products are on DYDX and also how you get there. It's probably also changed the nature of like what users are actually using DYDX. So maybe just to finish off adding color to the nature of DYDX, could you also talk about like the general user profile? Who is trading on DYDX? Are the amounts that they're trading on DYDX more than you would find on a centralized exchange like Coinbase? What's just the nature of the user profile on DYDX?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, because we're focused on these financial derivative products, these types of products are just fundamentally more complex than products you'd find on a normal spot exchange like Coinbase. And therefore, the types of users that are trading on DYDX are much more advanced than, call it, like the average Coinbase user. DYDX really isn't targeting somebody who has bought, their first $100 worth of Bitcoin in the past week. It's really much more targeting people that have, been in the space for a while, understand financial derivative products, or at least want to learn about them. And I think that manifests itself in our metrics in a couple different ways. I don't really know what Coinbase's numbers look like. I would sort of guess their, a number of active weekly traders is probably in the hundreds of thousands to, maybe low single digit millions. On DYDX, just sort of for comparison on an order of magnitude, I believe we have about 7,000 or 8,000 weekly active traders. But as you say, they're pushing much, much more volume on average than sort of like the average Coinbase user is. So the users that we're capturing are much higher value on average. There are a couple different profiles. I think DYDX is targeting both international advanced individual crypto traders, people that likely have traded derivatives and perpetuals on other platforms like Binance or FTX before. And then DYDX is also targeting in a big way sort of all of the top crypto trading funds in the space. One of the other really exciting things, and probably the thing that I've been most excited about with all the DYDX growth recently, is that almost all of the top crypto trading funds have already integrated with DYDX, or at least are sort of like talking with us about integrating. And that's really exciting because I think that's where the real trading volume and sort of the real value capture comes from. DYDX will always be a platform both for individual traders and call it like crypto institutional traders. But I think a lot of these, more crypto institutional traders had traditionally been hesitant to enter DeFi, or, there wasn't enough trading volume or activity there to make it make sense for them. And that's really starting to change right now with DYDX. And I think that's really exciting.
That's awesome. And I think that leads into the next question we have for you, which is like, what do you attribute to the recent success of DYDX? You guys have absolutely exploded over the last few months in particular. We have a few theories as David and I were talking about this conversation. And I wonder if you'd like to weigh in on these theories, but then please, best on why you're actually growing the way you're growing. But the first is the release of Layer 2. I mean, we've seen this story elsewhere with Axie Infinity. Most recently, not quite a Layer 2, a sidechain, but Layer 2, lower gas prices, super important for scalability. The second is the DYDX token. And of course, we know tokens are like steroids for growth. And so DYDX has injected some of those steroids maybe with a recent release of the DYDX token. And the third is maybe an increased focus on decentralization. This comes out of, some of the shutdown of centralized exchanges in China. Kind of where's that volume going when it leaves Huobi, for example? Maybe some traders are reevaluating the importance of decentralization. Maybe some of that liquidity and volume is actually leaking into DeFi. Give us your thought on any of those, and then also tell us the real reason that DYDX has had such explosive growth this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. Those are the top three things I would pick to focus on as well, but maybe adding a bit more color to that. For those who aren't familiar, the DYDX protocol token was released about 2 months ago by the DYDX Foundation, and that has just obviously driven a ton of growth to the platform. I think I probably even said this last time I was on the show, but my mantra has always been, DYDX has been around for 4 years now. So why did it take so long for the DYDX token to be released? And my thesis on this had always been that yes, tokens can be just massive, like order of magnitude growth drivers for a platform. But the way you really get big and like the way you like really capture a lot of volume is you start by, first of all, making a great product that is already growing organically, that has real use cases for people to be able to use it. And you also build a scalable product. Because just imagine if the DYDX token had been released, but DYDX were still operating on Ethereum layer 1. That growth would not have happened. One really exciting statistic is we were only on DYDX pushing multiples of all of the transaction volume on Ethereum combined. And I think we probably still are. So it's sort of by definition, that growth could not have happened on layer 1 Ethereum. So again, we talked about this on the show before, and I'm sure we'll touch on it again. But as you say, that launch of the layer 2 product was, I think, a really big step up for us in a couple of different areas that are super important. Scalability, obviously. The product experience is way better. There's instant trading, cross-margining, things and features users care a lot about. And that product was already growing organically before the token launch. And I think that's important. And then, fast forward to 2 months ago when the DYDX Foundation released the DYDX token. And I think the foundation did a really great job of just creating a lot of these liquidity mining programs. Liquidity mining empirically has been super successful for a lot of different protocols in the space. So it's not really rocket science, but the thing that's hard, I think, is what are you incentivizing with your liquidity mining programs? Are you incentivizing the right things? And I think that's the real critical question. And the thing I think, the DYDX Foundation got right in the launch of the token. There are quite a lot of different liquidity mining programs. Happy to dive into any of them. There are liquidity mining programs for traders on the exchange. There were liquidity mining programs for past users of the platform, liquidity mining programs for market makers, which has driven a massive amount of liquidity to the exchange. There are staking pools, and I think all of these together really play into incentivizing exactly the right behaviors that we want to see and that are valuable on DYDX. So I've been really excited about that. And then sort of your third point, I think that's valuable as well. I think that's sort of like a lesser point. Not that it's not important, but I think that's just something that continues to happen over time as more people see the value of decentralization, whether that's for transparency, self-custody, censorship resistance. And I think that's what makes us excited about the long-term growth prospects on the platform.
To what you said about the token, the beauty about tokens is that you can specifically engineer the incentives that you want out of a token. And it's just a tool that some centralized exchange like Coinbase and FTX just can't really figure out by the nature of their centralization. And so it sounds like we're all on the same page about where the success is coming from. But Antonio, if I can pin you down to actually put some numbers behind this thing, can you divvy up percentage-wise what amount of the recent DYDX success can you attribute to the layer 2? Was that 50% of the success, 80% of the success? What about the token? 20, 50%? Yeah. What if you had to divide up the pie of the success, where's the success coming from?
I mean, it's a great question. It's a little bit hard to say because I think those two are really multiplicative with each other. I don't think they're like additive. And I think that makes it a little bit tough to like put specific percentages on it. Let's just take the world where, like I said, DYDX is still on layer one with our old layer one product, and the token was released on top of that product. I think there would have been a good amount of growth, sure, but by definition, we wouldn't have been able to scale to more transactions per second than all of Ethereum. And likely we wouldn't have seen even close to, I would guess probably our volumes would be in like the tens of millions or maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. And now we're in sort of the low single digit billions of dollars. But also empirically, like we had been operating on layer two for a while with more or less the same product before the token. It's getting better all the time, but it's more or less the same before and after the token. And I think before the token, we were seeing daily volumes in roughly the $100 million range. And then, as I say, now we're seeing volumes in the $2 billion a day or so range. So empirically, it's driven like 20x growth for us in the past month or so.
That growth is definitely being showcased very, very well by the TVL chart for DYDX, which here it is. I joked on Twitter a little bit yesterday when I tweeted out this graph that it literally looks like the up chart emoji. It looks like the same shape. Again, I kind of want to return to almost the same question. To what degree is this layer two incentivizing lockup, and what degree is this yield farmers seeking the incentives out of the token? And where have you seen token incentives really shine when it comes to attracting yield? Like what are because there's so many different ways to do like DYDX token yield farming on DYDX, because there's so many different ways to pay out incentives. Which ones have really resonated with the people that are seeking the DYDX token? And is that why we're seeing all of this lockup as well?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. So let me maybe at a high level just go through like all of the different liquidity mining programs that were launched alongside the token, because there are a couple of them and they are complex. So feel free to stop me and ask questions at any point. So it's kind of the first and most basic, but also probably most important liquidity mining program is what we call trading rewards. This is effectively just incentivizing users. There's like a fixed amount of DYDX tokens that are allocated to this program per month. And then everyone gets a trader score on DYDX every month. And your trader score is based off of the amount of fees that you've paid on the platform, multiplied by your average open interest on the platform over that month. And average interest, all that means is like, the amount of positions, if you hold like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin on DYDX for a month, then your average open interest is $1,000. So you take these two things and you multiply them together, and, out of that, you get a score. And the reason you multiply them together is that, you need both of these things. You need to be both actively trading and paying fees, and you need to, hold positions on the exchange. So you could make a trade on DYDX and exit it immediately, but then your average interest wouldn't be too high. And the other reason that it was set up this way is because these numbers are hard to fake, right? You literally have to pay fees on the exchange, and you literally have to lock up capital to, hold open interest on the platform. So it's really incentivizing and driving, for the most part, really organic volume and incentivizing like the way users were already trading on the platform and on the exchange. And I think that's pretty ideal. So that's kind of the first and most important liquidity mining program. Another really important one that has driven just huge success to the platform so far has been there's a separate liquidity mining program just directed at market makers on the platform. Just a really quick overview, like who are market makers? What do they do? And you touched on this before. DYDX is an order book based decentralized exchange. What an order book is it's basically just a sorted list of all the prices people want to buy and sell at. So when you're trading on DYDX or any other order book based exchange, you're trading against other traders on the platform. And for the most part, you're trading against market makers, these professional trading firms, which their whole job is to provide liquidity to people who want to trade on exchanges. And to kind of put some numbers around this and explain why this is so important, liquidity is quite literally the most important thing to an exchange and the most important thing to traders on an exchange, because it's literally the price that you get when you're trading on the exchange. If exchange A is offering to sell you Bitcoin for $1,001 and exchange B is offering to sell you Bitcoin for $1,000, of course, you're just going to go and trade on the exchange that's, willing to sell it to you for $1,000. Just more liquidity gets better prices for traders. And that's what traders care about, obviously. So anyways, liquidity is super important for an exchange. To put some rough numbers around this, roughly DYDX had around $1 to $2 million worth of depth. What depth basically means is like how much can you buy within a certain amount of slippage, or within a certain percent of the mid-market price. We had about $2 million before the token launch of depth on the ETH markets. And to put it into context, Binance, which is the world's most liquid exchange, has about $25 million within 1% of depth on their Bitcoin perpetual, which is the most liquid product in the world, or in crypto at least. Fast forward to now, DYDX has created this liquidity mining program, which quite literally incentivizes market makers based on their performance. And one of the other sort of more complex, but one of the things that I'm most proud of that the foundation did is the foundation came up with this score for market makers on the platform as well, which looks at all of their orders that they've placed on the platform for the entire month and comes up with one numeric score. And this is important because by coming up with this one numeric score, you can divvy up these market maker rewards in sort of a perfectly incentivized way. The score is complex, but it's based off of a combination of the uptime that they're willing to provide. So, if this market maker is quoting 99% of the time, that's better than if the market maker were quoting 90% of the time. It's based on the spread that they can provide. Spread means sort of like the amounts that you have to pay them to trade against their orders based on the amount of depth that they can provide. Zooming out, effectively, there's a liquidity mining program that is targeted at market makers. Fast forward to now, and one of the craziest things that I think has happened, to be honest, in the past month is DYDX is literally the most liquid exchange in crypto by a lot right now. That $2 million of depth that I talked about before, fast forward to now, and that's $40 million of depth within 1% on our Bitcoin perpetuals, and Binance has 25 million. So yeah, it's literally we're the most liquid exchange in crypto, and perpetuals are the most liquid product in crypto. And I think that's been driving a lot of activity to the exchange as well. Other liquidity programs like staking pools that I can touch on and go into, but that was kind of a lot, so I'll stop there for now. But I think those are probably the biggest things that have been driving a lot of growth.
Yeah, I'm super maybe it's sort of a learning lesson coming out of this and in hearing you talk is that DYDX has been very intentional about its token strategy and its token incentivization strategy. Like this is one of the most complex, but also, I guess, high leverage token schedule liquidity programs that I've seen. And you guys were very intentional about waiting to release the token until you were sort of ready for that growth. And then the specific areas that you wanted to apply the token to that would benefit the protocol most. It's very precise. I see a lot of token strategies that are just kind of shotgun. Here, you get a token. And what are we rewarding? What are we incenting? Oh, I don't know, users. But DYDX has taken a very precise, I guess, token strategy, and you're injecting it in the steroids, I guess, in the right parts of the body to increase that muscle mass. I want to ask you this question too. It's I feel like with DYDX's success this year in the whole decentralized exchange category, we're seeing a return of the order book. Okay. So I remember the story of Webvan, which was a .com company that wanted to deliver groceries to your house, right? Early 2001, they went belly up. It was too early. The internet wasn't ready. Consumers weren't ready. Now we see how many different web vans that have been successful 20 years later, right? We got Uber Eats, and we've got, almost every grocery shop retailer delivers to your house now. It's just timing is a huge factor in the success here. And I think we've seen something similar with order book exchanges, at least decentralized order book exchanges, right? The very early stages of DeFi, we had, what was that exchange? I don't know why it's escaping me.
Ether
off the top
Delta.
of my head. Ether Delta, thank God. Do you remember Ether Delta? What a mess that user experience was. Order book exchange all on chain. We saw that. We saw, DYDX's early efforts. Nothing took off until automated market makers and Uniswap really like crushed it on that angle. But now I feel like we're seeing this resurgence in order book exchanges, like decentralized non-custodial order book exchanges. And I'm wondering if you can kind of reflect on that. Do you think order book exchanges have made a comeback and will now be the most dominant decentralized exchange in crypto? How do you think it plays out between automated market makers, which have been very successful in DeFi, and order book exchanges? And where do these two things fit?
Yeah, great question. And also, again, I think you're spot on with the timing piece. I 100% agree with that. I think the most important thing in startups and tech in general is timing. There are lots of good ideas out there, but it's irrelevant if you have a good idea, if it's, not created or, pushed at the right time. And I think, AMMs really took off, and certainly I'm not the first person to say this, but because of Uniswap, and because Uniswap was able to offer trading of all of these new tokens that weren't available to trade elsewhere. Automated market makers are really good, and I admit they're much better than order books at providing liquidity on sort of the long tail of markets. But I've always said this, and I think it's really starting to come true now. Order books, I think, very strongly are much better at providing liquidity and much better at providing a good user experience on, call it like the top 100 to 200 markets by volume. And I think you see this play out on centralized exchanges. All the centralized exchanges use an order book based model for a reason, right? And again, zooming all the way out, just because so many things that we do at DYDX are impacted by this high level directive, we want to be the biggest exchange in crypto, period, but on a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And again, so let's just think about what we need to do if we want to get there. We need to support derivatives. Obviously, we talked about that. But also, as I touched on before, most of the volume in the space goes through these top 100 or 200 markets. Certainly, there's a long tail of sort of random or smaller cryptocurrencies that are valuable to trade, and there should be platforms on which users can trade these assets. But if really the thing we care about at DYDX is just becoming the biggest exchange, then we need to support the best possible user experience and the best possible liquidity for these top markets in crypto. And the way we do that is through order books. And I think that has really played out for us, and the liquidity that we've been able to generate, and sort of the crazy stats around the level of liquidity we have right now. We're the most liquid exchange in crypto. You wouldn't be able to do that on an automated market maker, or you'd sort of just need so much capital to be able to do that. Order books are able to support much more advanced order types like stop orders, limit orders, all of these different things that professional traders need. I think for the most part, Jane Street or something like that isn't just going to come and trade on automated market makers quite as much as they're likely to trade on order books. So I think just order books can provide this higher level of user experience for professional traders and for more advanced users. But my point is that's where I think the real volume in crypto is, certainly at least for now, TLDR or TBD, whether that will be the case, 5 to 10 years from now in crypto. I could be wrong, but I think it just makes the most sense for us to start with the highest value markets that we could capture, and build the best possible product around them. And for me, that's order books.
So Antonio, now you said this twice, so we got to dig in. You really think it's possible for DYDX to become the largest exchange, not just decentralized exchange, but the largest exchange? That means beating out FTX, beating out Binance. You've already beaten Coinbase a little bit, right? But you think that's actually possible? I get the sense from how you're speaking, it's not just aspirational. You're kind of serious about that. Tell me how that happens.
Yeah, obviously we've seen a huge amount of growth in the past month or two, and that's super exciting. But maybe to put things into context, where are we actually at right now? Yes, we did more volume than Coinbase. For a couple of days, I think we're sort of trading back and forth with them now on doing more volume versus less. We're still a good ways off from a Binance. Binance is roughly doing $75 billion a day in volume, and DYDX is at $2 billion. So still a long way to go. FTX is at $15 billion a day in volume or so. So yeah, we've got to grow by another 50 to 100x if we want to be one of the biggest exchanges in crypto. But again, I think it really is possible. Again, it has to start, in my mind at least, by definition, with derivatives trading, because already and in literally every single mature financial market, there's more volume and more value capture in derivatives trading than there is in spot trading. So that's why we're focused on that. So let's just start with that. I think the real bet that we're making is that decentralized exchanges, and obviously specifically DYDX, will beat out centralized exchanges on some timeline. It's hard to say exactly what that's going to be, but I always sort of say roughly, it's like, we want to be the biggest exchange in 3 to 5 years from now. And I think we're making a couple bets there. We're betting on the technology continuing to improve. We're betting that we'll be able to continuously improve the product. We're betting we'll be able to continuously improve on like the amount of decentralization we can offer our users. We're betting on, sort of what happens sort of from like a regulatory crackdown perspective with centralized exchanges. But I think there are a lot of reasons to at least think that there's a realistic shot. I don't, it's hard for me to give percentages, but somewhere in the like 10 to like, I don't know if I'm being realistic, like 35% chance that I think DYDX becomes like the biggest exchange at some point. I honestly believe that. Maybe people think that percent is like too high. But I think that most people can believe at this point that there is a shot, right? If we just assume that like the technology works out, the product experience can get better and better and better. Already we have the best liquidity. So I think that's like, been disproven already that decentralized exchanges can't have as good liquidity as centralized exchanges. And I think that there's a lot to be excited about, at least. And for me, it's like exciting to work on something that has this like, multiple orders of magnitude type growth potential. That's just what's exciting to me sort of in life. And it's like, it's not a given, but like, I think there is a realistic shot that we could be one of the biggest or the biggest like crypto exchanges, and sort of therefore like one of the biggest like protocols or companies or whatever in the world at some point. And that's exciting to me.
So let me ask, like, how are you going to do it without Tom Brady? You know what I mean? Like, so FTX, of course, for people who aren't familiar, they have like celebrity endorsements now. They're paying professional athletes and celebrities a lot of money,
slapping their logo on top of stadiums. All the MLB umpires have FTX right on their chest.
They're playing the centralized exchange game, and they're playing it very well. We often call them kind of neo banks, like they're crypto banks, aren't they? And I guess the bet that DYDX is making is that people will prefer decentralization, and maybe like first users, but also you mentioned something that's super interesting in there. It's like maybe regulators will prefer decentralization. So like, can you do this without Tom Brady, or do you intend to like go get the athletes and the celebrities and play that game too? What's your take?
Win DYDX Arena.
That'll be the day. Maybe someday, I won't throw that opportunity or, that possibility out the window. At some point, it'll make sense for us to grow into, call it more like mainstream, like international users. And a good way to do that is with advertising, celebrity endorsements, and things like that. But for us, like I said, the obvious growth opportunity right now is people that are already trading crypto. Like Binance has $75 billion a day, FTX has $15 billion a day, DYDX has 2. So let's just grow into like Binance and FTX's users for at least the next year or 2. And that is a ton of growth potential right there. So, that's sort of like answer to the question, why not DYDX Arena today? Maybe at some point in the future, once we are grown a little bit more, and need to get a little bit more into the mainstream conversation. But there's a huge amount of growth opportunity just with the people that are in crypto right now. And that's really what we're focused on. In terms of the regulatory piece, it's tough for me to say or kind of dive too much into like publicly. But I definitely, I've said this before publicly, and I honestly believe that there are a lot of things that I think regulators care about that are positive. About decentralized exchanges, regulators care a lot about transparency. Regulators care a lot about solvency of the systems that users are trading on. And I think decentralized exchanges do a much, much better job at that than sort of these black box, like international centralized exchanges do. So I think there's a lot to be excited about there. And just generally, I think there's a huge amount of growth opportunity for DYDX, and we're excited about that.
That's really cool to hear, guys. We have a lot more to cover with Antonio. We're going to talk about why DeFi in general and Antonio's thesis around that, building on layer two as well. Talk a little bit more about regulation and DYDX in 5 years' time. But before we do, we want to thank the sponsors that made this episode possible.
When you shop for plane tickets, you probably use Kayak, Expedia, or Google to compare ticket prices. So why would you limit yourself to just one exchange when you trade crypto? When you make your trades, you want to make sure that you're getting the best possible price on your trade and that you aren't paying high gas costs that you could have otherwise avoided. That's why you should be using Matcha. Matcha routes your orders across all the various DeFi exchanges on Ethereum, Polygon, Binance Smart Chain, and gives you the best possible prices without taking any commissions. Matcha has smart order routing that splits your order across multiple liquidity sources if Matcha sees that it gets you better pricing. Trading on Matcha is super easy because it pools the liquidity for me into a single easy-to-use platform. Matcha also allows for you to make limit orders on chain so you can set and forget your DeFi trades, and they will go through automatically while you're away. New to Matcha is an integrated fiat on-ramp, so you can purchase crypto directly with your credit or debit card and have that fiat be instantly traded for any token that has liquidity. When you're making a trade, head over to matcha.xyz/bankless and connect your wallet to start getting the best prices and most liquidity when you trade your crypto assets. Gemini is the world's most trusted cryptocurrency exchange. I've been a customer of Gemini since I first got into crypto in 2017, and it's been my main exchange of choice to make my crypto buys and sells. Gemini is available in all 50 states and in over 50 countries worldwide, and on Gemini there are markets for over 30 various different crypto assets, including many of the hot DeFi tokens, and it's one of the few exchanges that has liquid DAI markets. Gemini just launched their Earn program, where you can earn up to 7.4% interest on 26 various crypto assets. If you're tired of paying fees in DeFi, or you don't want to worry about DeFi exploits, but you still want to earn interest on your crypto assets, Gemini Earn is the product for you. Another product I'm stoked to get my hands on is the Gemini Crypto Back Credit Card, which gives you 3% cash back on all of your purchases, but paid to you in your preferred crypto asset. When I get my Gemini credit card, I'm going to make sure that I get my cash back in ETH. So whenever I buy something, I get a little bit of ETH bonus back to me at the same time. You can open up a free account in under 3 minutes at gemini.com/gobankless. And if you trade more than $100 within the first 30 days after sign up, you'll be gifted a free $15 Bitcoin bonus. Check them out at gemini.com/gobankless.
Hey guys, we are back with Antonio Giuliano from DYDX talking about the DYDX story. And where we left things before the sponsor break, we were talking about how DYDX might compete and might beat and win against the centralized exchanges, the FTXs of the world. But I feel like we haven't really nailed this point home yet. And I know you guys have been on a trajectory, like you could have gone the centralized route at any point in time. You could have thrown in the towel and said, this decentralization stuff is too hard. Ethereum's not scaling. You'll see you later. We're turning centralized. But you didn't. You stuck to this roadmap. And I want to ask the question of why DeFi to you, Antonio? Why is it important for an exchange like DYDX to be centralized in the first place? Why do you think that's a killer advantage? And just tell us why.
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, maybe just to say something a little bit like counterculture, the most important thing to me is that DYDX is that we hit this goal we have set for ourselves of DYDX being one of the biggest exchanges in crypto on the 5-year time horizon. That means being centralized. Like we've honestly thought about that in the past. Obviously, we haven't done it, but we've thought about, well, okay, maybe like you say, if Ethereum doesn't work, should we just switch to being like a centralized exchange and sort of do what FTX did? But I honestly believe that the highest probability way that we can win and that we can be one of the biggest exchanges on that sort of timeline is by being a decentralized exchange. And I think that's really exciting. And the reasons why we're excited about that are a couple of things. And probably they're, along the theme of what people are excited about with decentralization in general. First of all, decentralized exchanges, as I touched on before, are transparent. And this is really important to traders and really important to advanced users, to trading funds. I think you saw this play out in traditional finance in a really big way and in sort of a bad way with sort of the Robinhood GameStop saga. of a couple months ago, where Robinhood delisted GameStop and people were super upset about that. And fundamentally, they didn't understand the rules of the exchange that they were trading on. And there was this central authority which kind of had the capacity to censor trades or inform like how users could trade. But by being a decentralized exchange and by having the power to quite literally just